Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to be talking about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. This is the sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and if you've seen my review for Rise, you know that was a movie that really defied my expectations. It was a movie that I thought was a good introduction uh, to the whole prequel genre. I was really impressed by it, and it made me respect prequels more. But I knew there were some problems with it. Like, it was kind of generic, it was just kind of basic, you know. Even now, I think about, like, the apes, and they were kind of handled in a way that you can kind of understand it would go. Like, of course, Caesar, the main character, played by Andy Serkis, magnificently, is going to go through these beats of defying the humans and all of that. I kind of saw that coming. So it was a movie that defied expectations, but didn't really push boundaries. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was a wonderful action movie. I was really surprised with this film. And my goodness, this movie, from the very opening shot, I was invested throughout the whole thing. The problems that I have with Rise of the Planet of the Apes are the same problems I have with this movie, actually. The human characters, they're kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie. Again, it's some of the same stock characters. There's the a-hole character. There's the good character that's going to be on the side of the apes. There's the woman who's going to be supportive, and then there's the kid with the quirk, and this one he draws. And so these characters are just kind of, again, you know them. You know these characters through and through, even if you haven't seen the movie. And it's kind of a frustration. But the difference between these characters and the ones from Rise is that their problem directly affects and interacts with the apes. As opposed to Rise, the problem was trying to get the enzyme. So it's like one thing is happening in this area, so we've got to focus on like the scientific lab, and we're affecting the apes, but we're not really focused on them. In this one, it's like we need to save our species, and we need to interact with this species that we think killed our race. Now, that to me is a much more interesting conflict as opposed to just, we need to make this enzyme. It's interesting because they need to interact, and while it's kind of boring, like they have to go to this hydroelectric dam to repower their building because they're afraid and get in contact with another military force because they're kind of dying out. It's a little bit like, okay, I get it. Okay, well, fine, we'll let you do that. Go and do that. But what was really interesting is seeing the apes. Caesar and his people have now become civilized, kind of. They're trying to be civilized people. They don't want to be the humans. They don't want to kill each other. And Caesar is trying to be the leader. Unfortunately, he's facing opposition from Koba, who is an ape. Oh, wow. That's how much he affected me. I thought he was a man. Koba is an ape that was greatly affected by scientists before Earth fell, and they destroyed him. Emotionally, spiritually, he is someone who has a deep hatred for the humans. And Caesar had the exact opposite kind of feeling. He was kind of the same, like, test subject, but he was never subjected to really harmful treatment as Koba was. So he has to balance dealing with the civilization and keeping it in check, dealing with Koba and making sure he doesn't go crazy, and dealing with the humans to make sure that they don't betray them. So that dynamic alone is much more interesting than just Caesar is trying to grow up and learn things. He's learning things that he would have to. And he can communicate with the humans now, which makes it a much more interesting character. Andy Serkis was good in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. In this movie, he does something so... It's nuanced, it's impressive, it's subtle, it's dramatic. He is perfect as Caesar in this movie. I can't find a single flaw with his performance. Any of the apes. Maurice is a character I kind of liked in the first one. In this one, he's like a teacher, and you can connect with him. You can connect with all of the apes, and so much of this is told visually. You're never told, Caesar doesn't come back and say, hey, Maurice, how's it doing teaching the other apes? Oh, it's doing pretty good, man. Like, it's actually a movie with stakes, it's a movie with heart, and it's a movie you care about. And the action in this movie is fantastic. Mostly because the motion capture is miles ahead of what it was in Rise. Like, this was made in 2014, 3 years after Rise was done, and the visuals, the cinematography, oh my goodness, this movie is beautiful to look at. The woods itself, the design, even the humans, like, area, like where they live, is designed very well. Gary Oldman plays a commander of the human like the human people, and while he's a character I don't necessarily care too much about, he's someone I can understand. And I understand why he doesn't like the apes. Because this virus has affected and basically wiped out most of civilization, these people have had to band together. And they are the last survivors, and so they need to stand together. And it causes this emotional... You feel for each of these characters. Like, you care about the humans trying to survive because, I mean, we're human, we want our species to live. But we feel more for the apes because we want them not just to survive, but to be understood. The humans put the apes in a negative spin in this movie, and we want them to see the apes the way the kind of main human does, the good human. I cared about what he was trying to fight for these apes. He respects them, and he believes that they genuinely want to help. So that made me a lot more happier than just seeing a guy in a suit saying, "No, no, no, we are not going to be continuing this with this enzyme. We are shutting you down, shutting you down, shutting you down. We're shutting everyone down." There was nothing like that. And I can't really give too much else away with this movie, because a lot of this is like a lot of the growth of all the characters is told in this really, really well done way. Like, you can see everybody in this film is like at their A game in terms of the apes, like for their performances. They are really doing a great job. The director, the writers too, like they did a great job at understanding how these apes will continue, and they understood the stakes that were involved in a lot of situations, and they knew how to progress the film very well. But there is one other issue I have with this. It's actually the opening. It opens up the way that a lot of movies open up, and it kind of recaps what I really loved about Rise, was that kind of last bit trailer moment, or not trailer, but credit moment, where we see the spread throughout the credits as it's going. We're seeing it, and then I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite endings. And then we see the same thing in the opening for Dawn, and it kind of makes me go, okay. But regardless, that didn't take away from my love of the film, and I really like this movie. So those are my thoughts on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It is a really good action movie. It is a wonderful visual story, and I think it elevates the first movie and this franchise in a way, again, it defied expectations. I give this a 4.1 out of 5, and personally, this is a movie I definitely say you should own it. And if you have a chance to see it in theaters, you should see it. It's a movie that really makes you rethink how prequels can be viewed. Like, it's not a movie that cashes in on references. It's its own thing. It doesn't rely on the original too much to, sell itself. It sells itself in its own way. And I think that is something that should be accepted, and we should appreciate this movie. If anybody ever says to you, digital films are ruining cinema, well, first of all, no. Second of all, tell them, well, watch this movie and see what digital effects have done for cinema. It's elevated it. If movies can continue to be like this, at least in the digital age, then I think we can actually have a conversation about where cinema is going. So, that is my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, guys. Tell me, what did you think of this movie? Also, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, guys, take care.